Just simply give me and Mr. Draghi and Francine an update on the European slowdown. Is it for real?
Yes, thank you, Tom. It's great to be back on the show. I think the European slowdown is real, and it is not just driven by developments in Europe. It's very much driven by what's going on in China, and we saw confirmation of that again in the...
So Trump-Xi affects Europe profoundly?
Absolutely, absolutely it does. And I think we see that particularly in the car sector, but there are also these idiosyncratic issues going on in the car sector itself. And Europe still has its own homegrown problems as we look at again today with budget developments in Italy.
I look at the markets right now, and with oil down, there's a demand moment, there's a supply. You're Edward Morris, definitive on international global power structures of oil, is adamant this mix of factors that out there will lead to stability and a higher oil price. Do you agree with your colleague?
Well, I think there's a difference between the short term and the medium term. I think my colleague Ed Morris has been quite adamant for some time that the supply picture going into next year will actually be pushing the price of oil downwards, that we would have this glut and this oversupply. And it seems like some of these factors have already come to bear much earlier than he thought.
Ebrahim, what do you need to get right in the next 12 months? Is it a dollar call? I know you have to get everything right, but is there one thing that actually will kind of make or break your calls for the next 12 months?
So I think, again, the critical issue actually for the next 12 months is what will happen in China. In China, we have a combination of three, I think, major developments right now. One is how deep is that slowdown? And then, of course, second, what is the response of Chinese policy? How effective will policy easing be? And then the third is around trade issues that we will be looking again in the context of the G20. If we see the Chinese economy stabilize, which is ultimately my expectation sometime next year, we will see the dollar peak, I think, sometime next year. But that's a strong condition.
But Ebrahim, do you have any doubt in your mind that if something ugly were to happen in China, I don't know whether it's shadow banking, I don't know whether it's more debt, the policymakers would either make a mistake or whether they just wouldn't have the tools to deal with it?
Well, I would say that there are still a lot of levers and a lot of tools. And therefore, I think even if we see incremental weakness from here, incremental damage, I think it will eventually mean that we will see a further dialing up of easing. But it is true that at the end of the day, I think their tools are not limitless. And therefore, I think that some degree of concern is valid, given all of the leverage that exists in the economy.